Do you have a non-compliant LLC? Do you even know what that means? Today we're going to talk about what it means to have a non-compliant LLC and what to do if you find yourself in that situation. Roll the intro. Hey, my name is Jim Hart. I'm the founding attorney here at Hawthorn Law, where we help online businesses get their legal house in order so that you can focus on what you do best, and that is building a business that truly matters in the world. Today, I want to talk to you about what it means to have a non-compliant LLC and what you can do if you find yourself in that situation. And I want to thank Cleve, who is the viewer that submitted an email to me that was the basis for this question. And Cleve, in his email to me, said, if you created an LLC but have been horrible at keeping it formal or compliant, what steps do you take to make it formal again? Or is it too late? Do you just create a new LLC or create a new business bank account? Would the courts take into consideration that you made your LLC formal again? Thanks, Cleve. Thank you, Cleve, for that great question. That is an amazing question, and frankly, I can't believe I haven't touched on it yet on this YouTube channel, but we're going to get into it today. So this is a situation that a lot of fledgling businesses find themselves in, and these are people that, think, oh, I would really like to start that online business. I think I'm going to go ahead and do that. And then they Google around and they find a place to form their LLC. They go ahead, they form their LLC, and then a couple months later, their idea kind of burns out or pitters out, or it doesn't gain a lot of steam. And then they're just like, I don't know what to do anymore. And they don't do anything. Does that sound familiar? Does that sound like something that maybe you have found yourself in? A situation that maybe you are, something that you've done in the past? I'm not going to sit here and say that I have done that per se. Anyway, if you find yourself in this situation and like our friend Cleve here, and you think that this might be something that you've done and your LLC is no longer in compliance, whatever that means, we're going to get to that in a second, then today we want to really touch on what you need to do, next steps going forward to make sure that you are in compliance moving forward. Because the last thing we want is for you to have a business that is not legit. We want legit businesses here. But I will tell you this, like many of the questions that I face on this channel, this is one of those seemingly non-complicated questions that's actually kind of complicated, and there is not necessarily a good straightforward answer to this. But here's the problem, because if you find yourself in this type of situation where you are maybe non-compliant or forgot to pay attention to your LLC and you're not quite sure what to do next, the issues that may come up, clearly piercing the corporate veil is one. If you don't have a valid LLC, if somebody were to sue you, they could pierce the corporate veil. You could have issues with your trademarks if you filed for trademarks under the name of your LLC. You could have tax problems if you sold or purchased assets in the name of the business. There could be title issues there. And there's a whole host of other problems that you could face if your LLC is not in compliance. So today I want to share with you what you need to do if you find yourself in this type of situation. But before we go into that, I do want to talk about what it means to be not in compliance per se. And for that, I'm going to bring out my handy dandy whiteboard, marker board, whatever you call these things. I'm going to bring out the whiteboard. I'm going to do some writing. So number one, you didn't pay your annual dues. So this is a fairly simple thing to do. A lot of people do this. They don't pay their dues. If you don't pay their dues, there could be issues. We're going to talk about that here in just a second. All right, number two. Did I get that right? Yeah, not bad. No operating agreement. All right, number three. You haven't paid your taxes. Yeah, you know who you are. All right, number four, you didn't fund your LLC right there. Let's go through those one at a time. All right, number one is you haven't paid your annual dues. And that is probably gonna be the biggest issue that we're gonna have to deal with. And when we're talking about non-compliance, because if you don't pay your annual dues, then the state can actually administratively suspend your LLC or actually dissolve your LLC entirely, meaning that you won't have an LLC anymore. They basically say, okay, you didn't pay your dues, we're gonna close you up, and that'll happen. So that's the number one issue that most people get into, is they form their LLC, they forget about it, they don't pay their annual dues, and then their LLC gets administratively dissolved. What to do about that, we're gonna talk about here in just a second. The second issue is you don't have an operating agreement. This isn't as big of a deal because there's a statute that you can fall back on if you don't have an operating agreement, but most people like to follow the rules of their operating agreement as opposed to the default rules that the states are gonna going to give you. And so in those type of situations, you get an operating agreement in place and then you're good to go from there. Number 3, you haven't paid your taxes. Well, for most people, if you're talking about an LLC, if you just got started and you haven't done anything with the LLC, then chances are the LLC hasn't generated any revenue, in which case you're not gonna, if you haven't paid your taxes, that's usually gonna be a personal issue, not a business issue, because for most people that are just starting out with an LLC and don't do anything with it, then all the money flows through to your personal tax return anyway. That's usually not it's usually not a big issue. Didn't fund your LLC. This is an issue that can come up quite a bit where people start the LLC, kind of forget about it, but they don't form their bank account, they don't get an EIN number, they don't put any money in the bank account, they don't do anything. They just get their paperwork and then stick it on a shelf or in a drawer somewhere and forget about it. Those people in most situations are also going to have issues where they haven't paid their annual dues, which are going to be a whole separate set of issues that we just talked about. So those two probably go together quite a bit, actually. So basically what you're going to do if you find yourselves in one of these situations is the first thing you need to do is get your butt in gear and figure out what it is that you need to do to get your business back on track. And so if you might want to check with the Secretary of State's office and see if they've administratively dissolved your LLC. If they have, what is it going to cost to get your LLC back? In some cases, it might make more sense just to go ahead and file a new LLC. In other cases, you want to pay back whatever you owe to the state and get your LLC going again. It really depends on your personal situation. I'm not really in a spot here on a YouTube video to talk to you about which option is going to be best for you. You might need to talk to a lawyer about that. But those are going to be the two options if you find that you have not paid your dues on an annual basis and the state may or may not have administratively dissolved your LLC. In the other situations, you just need to start doing what you need to do to get your business back on track. You need to get your operating agreement in place. You need to fund your LLC. You need to start taking your business seriously, whether that means starting over with a new LLC and moving forward and dumping the old one. Maybe you're in a different business, you've got a different business name, something like that. That's one thing you can do. Or, you can use the LLC that you've already started. You can always change the name of an LLC if you'd want to. And there's different, you've got a lot of options. You don't necessarily need to dissolve the LLC and start a new one, but if the state's dissolved it for you, then it might be a good time to start a new one. I don't know. Anyway, in any of these situations, hopefully what you'll be able to do is once you kind of get a handle of where you're at with your LLC and what you need to do moving forward, you're going to be able to sleep better at night. You're going to be able to rest easier. You're going to know that your business is on a firm legal foundation and you're ready to rock and roll moving forward. If you like what I'm talking about here and you want to hear more about me talking about the exciting, thrilling topic of LLCs, check out here. I got more videos right here. All right, folks, have a good one. We'll talk to you next time. Peace.